Hello and welcome each and everyone to the Living Water Church of God Devotional. I am Always King, and I want to thank you for this time that you and we can share together once again in the Lord's principles. Today's devotional will deal with, in times of crisis, where is God? When it seems like everything is going wrong and God seems to be totally silent. Today we'll be going to the Lord's principles in the book of Job, chapter 1, beginning at verse 13. The scripture reads, "And there was a day when his sons and his daughters were eating and drinking wine in their eldest brother's house. And there came a messenger unto Job and said, The oxen were plowing and the asses feeding beside them, and the Sabaeans fell upon them and took them away. Yea, they have slain the servants with the edge of the sword, and I am escaped alone to tell thee." While he was yet speaking, there came also another and said, "The fire of God is fallen from heaven, and have burnt up the sheep and the servants, and consumed them, and I only am escaped alone to tell thee." While he was yet speaking, there came also another and said, "The Chaldeans made out 3 bands and fell upon the camels and have carried them away. Yea, and slain the servants with the edge of the sword, and I only am escaped alone to tell thee." While he was yet speaking, there came another and said, "Thy sons and thy daughters were eating and drinking wine in their eldest brother's house. And behold, there came a great wind from the wilderness and smote the 4 corners of the house, and it fell upon the young men, and they are dead. And I only am escaped alone to tell thee." Then Job arose and rent his mantle and shaved his head and fell upon the ground and worshipped and said, "Naked came I out of my mother's womb, and naked shall I return thither. And the Lord gave, and the Lord have taken away. Blessed be the name of the Lord." In all this Job sinned not, nor charged God foolishly. This is a very familiar passage of scripture dealing with the Lord's principles. And many of us, we have heard this testimony of Job many times. And just like in Job's situation, many of us, sometimes we receive news and sometimes things hit us out of nowhere. There are times we face economic financial crisis. There are times we face crisis sometimes with our children. There are times you may be a business owner wherein it seems like you may experience financial ruin, bankruptcy. It just seemed like sometime during the course of a day, everything that could go wrong has gone wrong. It seemed like the bottom has fell out over and over 10 times through. And in the midst of sometimes the crisis and the life crisis that we experience and the things that we go through, there are times that we can find ourselves, we may pray. We may seek God's face. We may cry out for help. And then there are times where it just seems like God is totally quiet. And we find ourselves wondering, where in the world is God, my Father? Where are you, Lord? Don't you care about what I am going through? Can't you see this is pulling me apart? In the midst of when the rains descend and the floods come and the winds blow and things just beat upon you, and it just seemed like God is totally quiet. It just seemed like your prayers are not even reaching beyond your ceiling. God is always there. And this devotional is to let us know on today, even when we think sometimes in the worst detrimental catastrophes that happen in our life, within our personal world, many times we witness and we experience disaster and catastrophes in the lives of other people. Sometimes in other countries, and sometimes it may happen maybe down the street or maybe in another state or another part of the world. But one thing that all of us have in common, and that is pain will come knocking on each and every one of our doors. And in the midst of that pain, God the Father, He wants us to know, it may seem like I am not there, but I am always there. When Job experienced this life crisis, this family crisis, this economic crisis, all of the things that he went through with his family, with his children, with his business, with his stocks, with his employees, with his cattle, all of the things that he experienced, a hostage crisis, a kidnapping crisis, all of these things he experienced in a day, even a health crisis. And even it talks about, as we go into the other chapters of Job, that even while he was experiencing different things, that even his wife, she went through a mental, emotional distress. Many people, when they look at when Job's wife spoke and said, why don't you just curse God and die, or just speak negative. I mean, charge God, blame God. It is amazing that in the midst of Job's pain, the scripture says that Job, as he rent his clothes, his mantle, he shaved his head, it says he fell down upon the ground and he worshiped. In the midst of our storms, and when it may seem like God isn't there, do we possess the ability to worship even when you may not feel like worshiping? Do we possess the ability to honor God and not to point the finger at God and say, you let this happen. You took this away from me. You took that away from me. The Lord wants us to know that there are times that we will experience maybe great tragedies, great tests, great tribulation. And in those times, we will either lean to our emotional state and we will lean on our emotions, or God will test us to see, will we reach down and grab his principles? And will we stand upon his principles and upon his word to work through the crisis that we are facing? You may be facing a crisis on today, maybe in your body, maybe with your health, maybe with your job, maybe within your family, maybe within your relationships, maybe with one of your children. God is still there, and God wants us to reach down and not stand upon opinion, not stand upon ideology, but stand upon the living word in those times of great test and great tragedy and great tribulation, and see the awesomeness of God even when it seemed like God isn't there. God is always there, and he wants to see us press through, knowing that I will never leave you nor forsake you. May this devotional bless you and encourage your heart on today. May it give you that strength that you need just to get through this day and know I am going to worship the living God, because God never fails. May God bless you. Have an awesome, incredible, and blessed day.